The spring of 1900 found 4 men batching together in a shack at Wrangell, Alaska. All 4 were broke, as is usual with prospectors. As luck would have it, I was one of the 4. For reasons which will be quite obvious, I will just call the 3 other men John, Charlie, and Fred. Charlie came in the shack one night in April, all excited, and said,
"Fellas, I've been on the trail of an old Indian for the past month trying to get him to tell me where he picked up a piece of free gold quartz he has at his camp. I never said anything about it before because I wanted to get the story from him first. And today he spilled the beans. He told me to go up to Thomas Bay and to camp on Patterson River on the right side, travel upriver about 8 miles and then turn to the high mountains. And after traveling about 1.5 miles, I would find a lake shaped like a half moon. Plenty of stone like I found on the side there," he said.
Thomas Bay is known by the Native Americans in Alaska as the Bay of Death, I should add. About 150 years ago, a slide down one of the mountains wiped out a village, killing over 500 of the inhabitants. Well, of course, a prospector is ready to stampede on a whisper of gold anyplace, and we were no exceptions to that rule. We all talked the matter over, and finally it was decided that we would run our faces for an outfit and send Charlie to look the prospect over. While he was gone, John, Fred, and myself would hustle work somewhere for another grub stake and pay the old one off. The forepart of May, Charlie loaded his outfit into a canoe and, having favorable weather, left Wrangell for Thomas Bay, which lies northwesterly about 50 miles. He had 3 months' supplies, but was to come back any time sooner if he found anything. But if he didn't show up in that time, we were to put out a search for him. John and Fred took a contract to get out wood, and I got a job at Wrangell sawmill. Things went along until the first part of June, when on Sunday in the late afternoon, we all being home, and in walks Charlie without a coat on or a hat and looking as if he had been through hell. He didn't give us any greeting whatever, just heaved a piece of quartz over into the corner of the room and said,
"Get me something to eat. I'm all in and I want to rest."
The fellow looked at it, and after he had eaten, he turned in without telling us a thing about his trip. We picked up the piece of quartz, and say boy, it was a pretty thing to look at for a prospector. It was shot through with gold specks, just like a badly freckled-faced kid. Were we excited? I'll say we were. Just before dark, we walked down to the beach to bring Charlie's outfit, as he came up to the shack with only that piece of quartz in his hand, but that wasn't a thing in the canoe except the oars. Not much sleep for us that night, but Charlie never stopped sawing wood. We had hard work getting Charlie up for breakfast the next morning, but when he did roll out, he just ate, borrowed a coat and hat, and left the house without saying a word or even answering one question out of the many put to him by us. All of us, being excited and feeling ourselves worth a fortune, did not go to work that day, but sat around the shack and passed the blamed piece of rock back and forth to each other while we talked and waited for Charlie to come back and make his report. Believe me, we were anxious to hear it. Along in the afternoon, he came in and said,
"Fellas, the SS Drigo will be in on her way south early tomorrow morning. Can you give me enough money for my ticket to Seattle? I'm through with Alaska, and I never want to see it again. I'll tell you about my trip to Thomas Bay and where I found that quartz, but my advice to you is to forget about it. It'll never do you any good, and it'll only cause you a lot of mental and physical pain. If we were not partners, I would never open my lips about this trip or what I found. But if you promise never to mention my name in connection with what I tell you, or mention the name of Thomas Bay to me again, I'll give you the straight of my experience up there. Judge for yourselves as to my saying this, because this is the most astounding thing you've ever heard. And as far as I'm concerned, it is beyond me to reason it out. Don't ask any questions to prolong my story any longer than it takes to tell it, as I want to leave Alaska and forget it if I can. I will try to make the one telling plain enough. The first night after leaving Wrangell found me in Ideal Cove. Next night I reached Muddy River in time to make camp again. The third night I hit Rush Island in Thomas Bay. I spent the next day looking up Patterson River for a suitable place for a good camp, which I found a quarter of a mile up from Tidewater on the right-hand side looking up the river. Broke camp on Ruth Island the next day and moved up to the place I picked out the day before. Put up my tent, packed up my outfit, and left the canoe on the riverbank. The next day I spent cooking beans, cutting wood, and making things comfortable for a long stay. As it looked like rain, I wanted to get things fixed to keep dry. Started to rain that night and just kept it up for days. I lost track of time as each day was just like the one before. Had nothing to read, was all alone, couldn't do anything without getting soaked, and the roar of the river and the wind through the timber just about drove me in bugs. So I put in most of my time sleeping. Finally the weather broke and I got out. Spent several days in trying to find the old Indians' Half Moon Lake, but couldn't get it spotted. I did find, about 2 miles from camp up the river and about a mile from it, a lake shaped like the letter S. On the creek coming out from the lower end, I panned some pretty good colors, but as I figured, not enough to get excited about, yet an indication of gold in the country. Talk about a dead country, that sure is. There doesn't seem to be any life in there at all. You might spend all day in the timber without seeing a squirrel. I was getting sort of tired of beans, rice, and bacon, so I made up my mind I would go over to the ridge about 8 miles east of the S Lake and get a few grouse, as I thought I could hear a few hooters up there when I was at the head of this lake. I left come the next morning, which was a fine sunny day. I took only the rifle with me, and when I came to the ridge, sure enough, there were a few grouse hooting. I shot 2 and had gotten them when I bagged another one, which fell down the ridge about 100 yards before it hung up. While on my way down to pick it up, I found that piece of quartz. Up to that time, I had paid very little attention to what the country I was in looked like, as it was so heavily timbered and brushy. The formation didn't show up, and I had no tools with me to uncover it. The top of an old snag had broken off and fallen, scraping the top moss and loose dirt for a space about 8 feet wide and 18 or 20 feet long, uncovering this quartz ledge, which is where I found this piece. This ledge was worked smooth by a glacier at one time. I couldn't find anything to break a piece off with, so I used the butt of my gun to get that piece. In doing so, I broke the stock of my gun, thus ruining its further use. This didn't worry me any, as I knew there was not game in the country larger than a grouse, and damn few of them. My first thought was the riches of the quartz and a few fellas, and getting back to town to round you all up and so we could get busy on it. After looking over and enjoying the feeling of knowing I had made a rich find, I covered the ledge up again with moss, limbs, and rotten junk. Finishing that job, I thought I'd climb the ridge directly over the ledge to get my landmarks, so I could come back to it again or tell you where it was if anything should happen to me. This I did, climbing straight up over the ledge on the ridge till I reached the top, which is about 600 feet above where I found the ledge. I looked down below me and picked out a big tree with a bushy top, taller than the rest and about 50 feet to the right of the ledge. Looking over the top of this tree from where I stood, I could see out on Frederick Sound, Cape of the Straight Light, the point of Vanderput Spit, and turning a little to the left I could see Shukoi Island from the mouth of the Wrangell Narrows. Satisfied with that, I turned half around to get a back sight of some mountain peaks, and lying below me on the other side of the ridge from the ledge was the Half Moon Lake the Indian had told me about. Right there, fellas, I got the scare of my life, and I hope to God I never see or go through the likes of it again. swarming up the ridge toward me from the lake were the most hideous creatures. I couldn't call them anything but devils, as they were neither men nor monkeys, yet looked like both. They were entirely sexless, their bodies covered with long, coarse hair, except where the scabs and running sores had replaced it. Each one seemed to be reaching out for me, striving to be the first to get me. The air was full of their cries, and the stench from their sores and their bodies made me faint. I forgot my broken gun and tried to use it on the first ones, and then I threw it at them and turned and ran. God, how did I run? I could feel their hot breath on my back. Their long claw-like fingers scraped my back. The smell from their screaming, stinking bodies was making me sick, while the noises they made, yelling, screaming, and breathing, drove me mad. Reason left me. How I reached the canoe or how I hung on to that piece of quartz is a mystery to me. When I came to, it was night, and I was laying in the bottom of my canoe, drifting between Thomas Bay and Shukoi Island, cold, hungry, and crazy for a drink of water, but only to satisfy the later urge. I started for Wrangell, and here I am. You no doubt think I'm either crazy or lying. All I can say is, there's the quartz. Never let me hear the name Thomas Bay again, and for God's sakes, help get me away tomorrow on that boat.
So passed out, Charlie, from our lives. We put this story down as fantasy, caused by loneliness and morbid thought.
All right, so what you guys heard is the first-hand account of one of the earliest reports of a Bigfoot sighting.
Yeah, and we hopped in the old time machine and we brought our recording to the year 1900 so that we could get Charlie himself to read the story to you guys.
How about that?
That's how, yeah, that's how much we care for you guys, that we're willing to time travel and record ancient, well, I guess not really ancient, but record old-timey prospectors with our newfangled recording devices. We blew their fucking minds, really.
Yeah,
but
we were straight up aliens.
We did it for you guys. Yeah, we look the same, but fuck, you should have seen what happened when we showed them our smartphones. It's insane.
I love this story because this is before the term Bigfoot. And I'm sure that the term wild man exists before that, and Native Americans have always had names for this type of creature, but this particular dude telling the story didn't know what to call it other than a devil.
A devil. Or a half monkey, half man, because he also referred to him as that. I guess he didn't name them half man, half monkey, but he said they looked like it.
Now, is that the only thing that makes you think of Bigfoot when you heard this story? Because when you're talking about Bigfoot...
Yeah, I wouldn't even... Like, to me, it doesn't even sound like Bigfoot, because Bigfoot doesn't look like a monkey. And maybe it's just me being an asshole, and these are ignorant people that are just like, an ape and a monkey is the same thing. A gorilla's a monkey, goddammit. A chimpanzee's a monkey. They're all monkeys.
That's what I was thinking. I was like, how familiar is this guy with monkeys and apes? So
yeah. It could be, but maybe it also isn't. Maybe it is a devil monkey.
It could be. I mean, like, one thing...
I want it to be. I want it to be a devil monkey. I don't want it to be Bigfoot. I want it to be goddamn devil monkey.
Yeah, just because of the name, the Devils of Thomas Bay, I picture these monkeys red, which is not a Bigfoot.
and he said he didn't mention that they were big. I guess in they were described as being 4 feet tall. So definitely not Bigfoot.
No, and that's one thing that stuck out to me as well, is that if we're talking about Bigfoot, I mean, Big's in the name. If this guy was taken back by something that was 4 feet tall, and we got such a detailed firsthand account of his experience, he definitely would have mentioned that these things were fucking huge.
Yeah. I mean, if you're saying they looked like neither man nor monkey, but somehow like both, like to me, when I think of a monkey, like the classic monkey is one of those little monkeys with the long tails that hang out with organ grinders with the little vests on. Like to me, that's like the classic monkey.
That's what I was gonna say. That's probably the only monkey this dude's seen.
Yeah,
The circus organ monkey.
Yeah. So he's probably like, man, they look like monkeys, but they're devils because they've got claw fingers and stinking sores.
Yeah, it's definitely different from a monkey, albeit a sick monkey. But if he knows enough to say it looked like a monkey, why didn't he just say a 4-foot monkey? What do you think about him saying that it was like a monkey and a man?
Well, to me, that makes it sound like it's more of a if it's half man, half monkey, that it's has human features. So like maybe there wasn't a tail, or maybe it was standing upright and walking around like a person instead of like a monkey, or maybe it had to do with the face. Like you hear with Bigfoot a lot that the people, hunters especially, that'll see Bigfoot, they'll always say they aim to kill it, but when they see its face looks too human to shoot, so they don't do it. And what if that's the case here, where they just look like their faces are too human?
Right. It's just a pissed off Harry and the Hendersons. It's not the cute, sad frown. These are flying up the mountain trying to beat his ass. I would never shoot a Bigfoot myself. I don't think I'd be able to do it.
I wouldn't shoot anything, so I'd be like, "Hey, Bigfoot, can I get a piggyback ride?" And then he'd rip my arms off and beat me with them until I was dead.
Make an effigy of your body.
Yeah. Some hunters find my body a few weeks later with my fucking arms shoved up my asshole and my head caved in.
Before Bigfoot kills you, he just tells you, he's like, yes, this is how we stay invisible, human blood.
And I'm like, you can speak English? And he just, shh.
Just hangs you upside down and slits your throat.
Yeah. And just bathes in it. My last vision on Earth is a shower of red spewing down my face as Bigfoot just caresses himself.
Oh man, I wish I was good at computer graphics, because a naked you hanging like 25 feet in the air with like 4 different ropes tied to your ankles going to different trees. Oh my god, there's like some shitty campfire next to it and Bigfoot dancing.
Yeah, bathing in my blood.
I fucking hate Bigfoot now. Don't kill Mike Bigfoot.
A fucking jerk. I don't want to be your shower, Bigfoot. I don't want to be your shower.
Speaking of Bigfoot being a dickhead, what would be the temperament of Man Bear Pig?
Oh my god, Man Bear Pig's such a dick.
Oh,
kills everybody.
He's raging all the time?
Yeah, of course he's raging all the time. Wouldn't you rage if you were half man, half bear, half pig?
I'm a chimera of anger.
He's super serial.
So, taking that the story's from 1900, I don't know, I get a little bit of a feel of the creature of the Lumberwoods. I mean, this guy was not a kid when this story happened. He very well could have been a Lumberwoods man at some point.
Well, I mean, 2 of the guys in the story actually did go into the woods to cut, and the other guy worked at the sawmill, so that's pretty Lumberwoodsy to me.
So since we're such in agreement that this is probably not a Bigfoot, are we going with some weird Alaskan Lumberwoods creature?
I mean, we could go down that road. I don't necessarily think that's the case, but we could if you would prefer to go down the crazy road.
I do.
I enjoy a good crazy road.
I do. As everybody knows, we both love the Lumberwoods creature shit. And if you think about an area that's not heavily populated, where like people going deep in the woods to cut down fucking trees, they're bound to run into weird shit. So these stories could be true. That's why they're interesting. Just imagine the shit that would be in Alaska's Lumberwoods and its super deep nature spots where people don't frequent.
What if they're like this hidden tribe of monkey devils that just live in this area and they eat goats and fish,
mountain goats,
and the occasional hiker?
Yeah, that's weird. I mean, there's all sorts of sized Bigfoots, right? There's like I mentioned before, wild men. They're just men-sized ape-like creatures, or
yeah, and then there's orang pendek, which is like a little Bigfoot. It's like 3 feet tall or something.
Yeah, but then those aren't Bigfoots. These guys got to be big to be Bigfoots.
Way to make the size comparison.
Yeah.
Their feet are huge compared to fucking rodents, so leave them alone.
I probably have the same size feet as some of those orang pendeks.
Little tiny feet.
So what if you came across a story from a friend? You know, you had a friend who tells you, I found this letter that my dad wrote in a box in the attic. How excited are you to hear that story?
Oh my God. I'm so fucking pumped. I want the guy to read it to me. I want to read it. I want to see the movie. Fuck off. What the fuck?
Is that the cat?
Yeah.
Is it having...
Shut up. No, he's just being a douche. Fucker, man. He just wants a moment in the spotlight, but he can fuck right off.
Pay your dues first.
Yeah. Why don't you interview Paul Hellier? Then he can come fucking talk to me. Son of a bitch. But, what was I talking about before? I was so rudely interrupted by my fucking cat.
You interview Paul.
Yeah.
I'm leaving all that in.
He just, meow. Well, you understand. There's the aliens in it. Meow.
No one would listen to that cat. Pipe down.
The money mafia. I bet the cat's part of the money mafia. That son of a bitch.
I don't even remember what you were saying.
Yeah, I don't know. I can't remember what maybe the last thing I remember was orang pendek feet that you have. So let's pretend that's where we left off with your tiny ass fucking orang pendek feet.
So you had mentioned that you might have an explanation for what this guy saw.
I think that I do. So let's keep in mind this is Alaska in the 1900s. I think we could agree that the people that would be in this area probably would not be very worldly, to put it nicely. Very likely they've only primarily seen white people, maybe some Inuits. But there's a documented case of a shipwreck that occurred in Thomas Bay. It was a ship filled with Chinese immigrants that were coming over. They had been, typically they would come over and get jobs in a canning factory in Alaska. And there was a shipwreck that also occurred in the early 1900s that was filled with Chinese immigrants, and the immigrants were never found, so it was assumed that they had died. But a lot of these immigrants, before they came over, many of them were goat herders, and there's mountain goats in this area. So, knowing all of this, let's say maybe that shipwreck occurred and there was a group of these Chinese immigrants that were able to make it ashore. They're fucking freezing. They just got out of a shipwreck. They're in Alaska and they know about herding goats. So you'd assume that they would also know about slaughtering goats and what to do with goats, things like that. So the Chinese immigrants wash up to shore after this shipwreck, and they don't know any English. They can't communicate. They don't know where the fuck they are, how the fuck they're going to get out of there, and even how to communicate with people. Let's say they're there for a while. They start getting scraggly looking. They're living off of goats that they're hunting. They make their clothes from goat skin. And all of a sudden they see this lone hiker walk. Fuck off. You son of a bitch. I'm going to make a pie out of you. It's going to be so delicious. So let's say they see this hiker, and this is the first person they've seen since they've been shipwrecked. they've been there for a while, and they don't know how to communicate, so they just start approaching him with arms extended, like, pleading, like, please help us. And he sees these people who maybe he's never seen what a Chinese person looks like before. And they're wearing these clothes that have been made out of goat skin, so it appears that they're furry. They're likely unkempt and dirty and probably have some injuries, hence the open sores. And they couldn't communicate, so they were trying to get his attention, reaching out for him for help. And in his mind, he just sees these hairy people that don't look like any people that he sees, on a regular basis, and just freaks out.
This is very likely, I think. I mean, there is the fact that he's dealing with natives already. He's getting the location of this lake from an Indian. So I don't know if he'd be too spooked by somebody who looks different coming at them weird. Now I can see a group of, or maybe like they said, 3 or 4 of these starving, shipwrecked people who've been surviving in the middle of nowhere, because again, this place is remote. This guy went looking for it and couldn't find it and just stumbled upon the area. I can see them just attacking the guy. Maybe they don't have to be friendly, reaching out and trying to ask for help. They'd see somebody with fucking boots on and they're stoked.
Yeah, and then they would fight amongst themselves for the boots. But it would make sense, and especially because there were ships that were coming from Asia from the late 1800s into the first decade of the 1900s. And all it would take is a shipwreck and have these people shipwrecked for a few months or a year. They're going to have longer hair. If he's never seen a Chinese person before, they're going to have a skin color that's different. They're going to have a different looking face, and they're wearing goat skin. So with unkempt hair, and this guy is ignorant, doesn't know anything, and is just like, oh my God, they've got hairy bodies. When it's goat skin, but they look hairy, and they're approaching him, reaching out. Maybe they're going to kill him. Maybe they want help. Maybe they are demon monkeys. Who's to say? But I think that this is a strong possibility that just ignorance combined with being alone for a long period of time. We don't know what his sleep habits were during this time or what his diet was. So he could have been just fatigued and just saw something that looked so alien to him that he flipped out and created the story of demon monkeys when really it was people that were trying to get help.
Now I think you're on the right track. This guy talked about how hard of a time he was having, eating only canned beans and shit like that, and the absence of any type of game or animals. I mean, he wasn't having a great time out there. He very well could have been roughing it pretty hard, but he said he spent a lot of his time sleeping. So I don't know how compromised his mental capacity would be. He's not starving. I mean, it's fucking raining.
Yeah. Yeah. And let's be real. Who gets sick of bacon? That part stuck out to me. I'm like, no one gets sick of bacon. I miss bacon so much. I would eat it every day. So I think for that reason alone, he's full of shit. I only eat turkey bacon, but
really,
I would still eat the fuck out of it. Yeah. I don't eat pork anymore. I've been off pork for like 4 years now.
I only eat bacon that I cook. I can't go in. I don't know. It's just the way I prefer my bacon is not the way people make it.
Oh. Are you a crispy guy?
Yeah.
Yeah, me too. But that being said, I'm not opposed to a floppy guy either, though. I love bacon so much. It's so goddamn good.
I'm not that much of a pork guy myself either. I'm not that much of a meat guy, to be honest.
I'm still big into the meat. Pork was actually my favorite meat, but I gave it up. And I do miss it, especially when someone gets a huge platter of ribs. And I'm just like, oh my God, that smells so fucking good. I just want to put my face in it. But I resist. But if it's not, there are other weird things that have been reported. For instance, in 1925, there was a trapper who lost his dogs in the hills around Thomas Bay, and while he was looking for him, he found these weird tracks. He said that the hind feet of the tracks resembled a cross between a bear and a human. I would be curious to find out if the front tracks were pig hooves.
Oh man! Besides the glorious chances that's our bear pig man, that's a pretty strange description.
Yeah, and he set up a bunch of traps after finding these footprints, and when he came back, some of them were sprung, some of them had been untouched, and some of them were completely destroyed. And he went deeper to look for his dog. He never returned.
That was it for that guy?
Yeah, that was it. No one ever heard from him again.
Wow.
Now there's no name given for him, so this could just be like one of those old wives' tales, but maybe it's not. Like it to me, it doesn't seem likely that the story would have spread so much. The initial story, Charlie's story, that it would have spread to the point where people would be making up these weird wives' tales. Like it seems like there's something with this area where there have been weird things reported.
I agree. When you look at that place, you definitely will find other weird goings on, but
especially it's called the Bay of Death.
Yeah.
But I think that's because of the landslide, which when that happened, it killed 500 Native Alaskans.
Mm-hmm. You also got to think, too, when you hear a story about a guy losing his dogs and then him going out to find them and not coming back, where they're at, that's got to stand out. I mean, people getting lost in the woods is something that kind of has to happen, not all the time, but happens out there, right? That's not too shocking, but when you hear about a story like that coming from that area, it stands out for a reason. That story spread for a reason.
Yeah, and especially with the reports, before he disappeared, he reported seeing these weird footprints.
Yeah.
And he set the traps, and the traps were destroyed. And so he was able to come back to communicate this information.
Exactly.
And then he went out to look for his dog and disappeared.
Fell prey to one of the red devil monkeys, became its mate.
He became king of the devil monkeys.
Yeah.
And that's why they all have open sores now.
That guy, unfortunately, had the herp dogs.
Yeah, big time. He had the body herp, which is, as we all know, the worst kind of herp because it's on your body. And now they've all got the body herp, and they're reaching for hikers, trying to spread the body. That's another side effect of the body herp, too. It makes you want to rub it all over people. It's like that weird fungus that infects ants and makes them climb till they explode so they can rain more spores down on the other ants.
Oh,
I don't remember the name of that, but
yeah,
it's that game was based on it.
The Last of Us, right?
Last of Us, yeah.
Yeah, the spore-like fungal.
Yep. And that's what the body herp is. It forces you to rub on people to spread it. And if you can cut them first, all the better.
Paranormal or not, that's good enough reason to stay out of Thomas Bay.
They're also they're paranormal herp sores.
Oh God.
So regular ointment and the usual treatment, it's not gonna work. I'm sorry. You need like a fucking magic spell and a bunch of crystals and some candles, and you need to sing a song on the second Tuesday in May while doing a backflip and touching your chin with your big toe.
And that may work. It's not guaranteed.
It may work. No, and that's only going to clear it up until your next outbreak. So, sorry for the body herp. Hope you get better.
Oh, God. That's why there are no expeditions to look for the great red apes of Thomas Bay, because nobody wants to get ectoplasmic body herpes.
No. They were considering calling it the Bay of Herp, but they thought that might hurt tourism.
And that's what those tracks were. They sent the bear man pig to go handle the red devil herpy apes, and he's been out there roaming. He destroyed his traps, not out of anger. He was just like, no, these are my kills. Get out of here.
Yeah. Yeah, man bear pig is well known for his taste in body herp, and he loves eating creatures that have the body herp, especially the paranormal variety. And that is a surefire cure, by the way. If you let man bear pig eat the herp off your body, it won't come back.
Holy shit.
Super cereal.
He just wants to help.
Well, see, it's not really helping, because when he bites, he takes a huge chunk of your flesh out and you'll likely bleed to death, but you will not have another outbreak. I can guarantee it. It's man bear pig, damn it.
You know, I've been trying to figure out a way to draw that. I don't know what to make what. Like, is the head the bear and the body the man with pig hooves?
It's just watch South Park. You'll see.
I didn't even know it was from South Park.
Oh, yeah. Al Gore keeps talking about man bear pig and how it's real, and he's half man, half bear, half pig.
Ah,
yeah. It's pretty awesome looking. Like, it looks like a D&D monster.
Yeah, there you go. I can get behind that.
Yeah, maybe in my world, man bear pig breathes fire too.
Has
he likes to cook his herps before he eats them.
Has like a bandolier of teeth.
Yeah.
Knee-high.
He's gonna fuck somebody up.
Knee-high cuffed boots.
And one of those awesome old World War I German helmets with the spike in the middle.
My God.
I like this version of man bear pig better than the South Park version.
Yeah, that I'll try to draw, like some old He-Man packaging type painting-esque.
Yes. Yes.
Thank you for listening to the Whatcast. You can find us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, iTunes, and YouTube. Enjoy the podcast. Get yourself a Whatcast t-shirt or a sticker pack. Who was that dude on that one episode? Try the links in Homie's page. All this and more can be found at www.thewhatcasters.com. Thanks again for listening and have a great week.